Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Walk to Wealth podcast. If you're tuning in on YouTube or any of the podcast directories, we just ask that you do us one teeny tiny little favor. If you find any value in this episode or have found value in the episodes prior, we just ask that you recommend us to one friend. If you can help one more life in their walks to wealth, that would mean the world to us. So we just ask for that one teeny tiny little favor. Refer us to someone that you think would find value in this episode as well. Without further ado, I have a very special guest here, Josh. For anyone that may not know you, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you and what do you do?
John, thanks for having me on the show. Happy to give a background myself for you and your listeners here. So, Josh Ziegelbaum, I'm the Director of Investor Relations for Legacy Group. We're an alternative asset manager, private equity firm that focuses on investments in Latin America that produce high social and environmental impact. So, as the Director of Investor Relations, I raise capital for our portfolio companies, handle investor communications. We have just over 300 investors who have participated with us in our flagship portfolio company, which is Green Coffee Company. It's really our main focus at this time. This company particularly is the number one largest coffee producer in Colombia. We've done that with investor capital as well as our own since 2018. We just initiated a Series C funding round. So my day-to-day is capital raising, investor communications, and kind of the regular administrative functions of us as an asset management firm.
Yeah, that's amazing. You mentioned a lot of high technical terms there that probably went over a lot of people's head. But Josh, before you got into relations and managing giant projects as what you do now, tell us a little bit about your walk to wealth. Where does this journey all begin?
Sure. Let's take it back to the beginning, John. So I was born in New Jersey,
Okay.
Brunswick, New Jersey specifically, and I grew up in that area right near Princeton is where I went to elementary, middle school, high school, and then actually ended up back in New Brunswick for college, studied economics at Rutgers University. Had a good experience there. And out of school, I had a brief stint in the insurance world. So I was working for Northwestern Mutual, quickly realized I wanted something a bit more dynamic. So I kind of shifted to work in banking. So I started with Wells Fargo, kind of at the bottom up, I guess you can call it, and kind of built my way over 5-6 years to become a private banker. So I was managing high net worth client relationships, helping them with their deposits, credit, things like getting mortgages and business loans, and then also portfolio management. So, but on the public side, public being stocks, bonds, like your typical traditional portfolio.
Yeah.
So that kind of brought me to Florida, actually, back in 2018. I had an opportunity to do a lateral transfer when I was with Wells Fargo and ended up coming down to the Miami area. So I was working out of an office in Surfside, living up in Broward County, though. And yeah, it was good. I did it for about a year when I moved here. And then I sort of realized I wanted something even more than that, something where I could make more of an impact, work with more interesting products, I'd say, rather than like the typical ones that the bank would offer. So kind of stumbled upon the partners who I work with today, Cole Shepard and Adam Jason. Been working with them for about 3 years now. I head up investor relations, already kind of gave you a background on my role, but sort of kind of your typical Jersey boy background, went to college, started a normal job out of school. And then that sort of just got me out of the market with that lateral transfer. Throughout my professional career, I've been an investor. So I've been investing in real estate personally since 2017. Started with my primary residence in New Jersey, brought that down here to Florida and continue to invest and try and build up a small portfolio of residential real estate. So that's kind of what I focus on outside of work. My personal investments, obviously I invest in our projects at Legacy Group. So we're in Green Coffee Company and hope that can help me build some significant wealth in the midterm as we look towards kind of selling that company or going public in the US. But yeah, I'm very much into finance, personal development, all things related. And hence why I work in that industry and I kind of live and breathe it. So that's sort of my path and how I got here.
Yeah, no, that's an amazing story. And if you could rewind a little bit, did you envision yourself heading down this path that you're on now? Or is this something that you kind of just stumbled across as midway through your career and it's like, hey, this seems like an interesting opportunity. Let's run with it.
When I was in college, I wanted to work on Wall Street. So very much different than what I do now, working in private markets. I never worked on Wall Street, by the way. So yeah, so kind of what I envisioned in the beginning and where I am are different from one another. I knew I wanted to work in finance, though. I was passionate about that from a young age. So I kind of stayed on the path, but kind of realized this as you go through your career, certain doors just open and then you see opportunity and you jump on it. And you kind of have to evaluate like, okay, well, maybe this isn't what I thought, but here right in front of me. So I was very opportunistic in that, and never really thought I would be in private equity, working in emerging markets, going down to Colombia, handling our investor base and in a really
Hmm.
cool project like this. I was thinking more that I'd be like a white collar Wall Street guy when I was in college.
Yeah.
So, but I went down, I'm very grateful for the path that I went down, and I'm happier actually with this outcome than
The
what I
Wall
was
Street
thinking
route.
career trajectory.
Yeah, let me ask you another question before we get into the main topic for today's conversation. How important was like kind of pivoting? Because as you said, your main idea that you have set originally didn't play out as you planned. And a lot of times when things don't play out as we plan, we tend to get frustrated. We think, oh, we're failures. We tend to down talk ourselves and things like that nature. But you made several pivots throughout your career and were able to, from going to Wells Fargo and then laterally transferring across the entire, from the northeast coast to the very bottom of the East Coast. And then again, from transferring from your Wells Fargo thing to now in Colombia, which is all the way in another continent, doing, but all kind of within the same, general field of finance. So, how important was pivoting throughout your entire career and being?
Very important. I mean, you got to always keep your options open, be on the lookout for things that sound interesting to you, that you can get passionate about. Always look for talent, people that are doing special things that you can get involved with. Often this industry is a team sport, right? So finding people around you that are capable of delivering, bringing value that you don't have, and then complementing one another. So I think people should always be on the lookout for pivoting, for other opportunities. And I wouldn't recommend any professional kind of to keep their head down for a decade or
Mm,
years and just go through the motions. I think there's more to life than that. If you're doing something that you're super happy about and you see it like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life, that's one different thing. But if you find something you like, it's interesting, it's sexy, it's fun, I still think that people should be open to pivoting, right? Like when I was with Wells Fargo, I was thinking like, okay, well, this is a great career, work my way up the ladder, continue to do that. Maybe I go continue to work in the private bank, maybe become a financial advisor. I was always keeping my options open then too. Even when I was a banker, I was thinking, oh, well, maybe I'll be an advisor instead.
mm,
Maybe I'll continue the banking route. And then I kind of just weighed my options. Every time you get into like a point in your career where you're about to take it to the next level, it's important to weigh your options and think, is this the right thing? Is there anything else that might make more sense? I personally got to the point in my career there where I was like, you know what? Maybe there's other things out there. I didn't even look for another company for over 5 years. I was always looking within Wells Fargo where I was
hmm
thinking, oh, well, what can I company that's different or that's take my career to the next level? But I think looking outside of that is important. The world is very much changing on a weekly, monthly basis, even by the minute. So, you got to
Yeah.
stay on that, be willing to pivot.
So definitely. I wanted to ask you now to get into the conversation a little bit. What is an alternative investment? 'Cause I know this is your area of expertise. This is what you specialize in. And a lot of people aren't even really too savvy when it comes to traditional investment. So what is an alternative investment? What makes that different from a traditional? And let's start the conversation there.
Sure. So an alternative investment would be anything that doesn't fall under the scope of a traditional. Traditional being stocks, bonds, cash, money market accounts, mutual funds, ETFs, the typical financial products that you would find when you go to a bank or a financial institution, or you can even do them on your own in many cases, setting up a self-directed brokerage account to hold these types of things. I would say anything in alternatives, sometimes real estate could be considered an alternative investment.
Hmm.
Not so much just like home, but like a more complex investment strategy. But in the case of our company, Green Coffee Company, it would be private early stage company that isn't publicly traded, that's in another market, that's in kind of somewhat of a niche in certain cases. Maybe
Hmm.
it's an apartment building investment. Maybe it's crypto. You can even consider that as being alternative. So anything that's out of the scope of your traditional portfolio could be alternative. So it's a very wide blanket of types of investments that we fit into there.
Yeah.
And
And
go ahead. Yep.
no, I'm going to ask. And so, like, when it comes to alternative investment, specifically what you're doing right now, a lot of people think it's like, oh, especially right now in times we're in, at least at the time of recording this, it's like the times are going bad right now. Inflation's through the roof. The economy seems a little shaky. And to invest in something outside of our country, which is already kind of in shambles, is like, it's kind of very scary. But it's like, it's not a very traditional, very orthodox way of going about things. Like, if I can't even invest in my own country, why would I invest in a company that's outside of it? So, like, what kind of advice would you kind of give there for like people that have kind of these limiting beliefs there and or fears or concerns when trying to think of investing in things that aren't in their country, in the US per se?
So we're seeing now like a very large uptick in interest over the last couple years with all the global macroeconomic uncertainty in the US, rising inflation, downward pressure on stocks, downward pressure on bond prices, fear around what's going to happen in real estate here. Our investors are typically high net worth individuals. They have net worths north of $1 million. The guys that are participating in our project, we have $100,000 minimum. So maybe depending on who you are and what stage of your life in, it's different, right? Like if you're just new to investing and you're about to invest your first time or maybe your second or third time, it might seem
Mhm.
very foreign to you. But the people who are investing with us, they have a heavy allocation to residential real estate here in the US, commercial real estate in the US, stocks, bonds, and US dollars, of course, right? What we earn and what we save in our bank. So investors are fearful that all of their are tied to one particular currency and one particular market, United States. So they're looking for diversification. They're looking for opportunity outside of the US. Emerging markets are said to be an important part of investors' portfolios. That's said by traditional financial advisors alike. Usually
Mhm.
they give you exposure to China or developing Europe. Right now, in order to put emerging markets in your portfolio, concerning, right? Thinking about what's going on in Asia and in parts of Europe. So we think Latin America is really a great choice when you're looking to put a portion of your assets into another market. Now, we've structured the investment here in the US. So we have a US holding company structure. So our investors actually invest in a US company, and that company owns all the farmland and all the assets in Colombia. So we give them comfort in knowing, I can actually invest here in the US and I can get exposure to this other market, exposure to
Mhm.
an early stage company investment, which is capable of returning multiples on their initial investment. So those types of returns are also hard to find here domestically or in the stock market. Typically, the stock market goes up 7 to 10% a year on average over a multi-decade period. So in order to double your money, it takes 7 to 10 years in order to do that in the stock market. And that's kind of assuming that things go right and that they run according to plan. We're forecasting investors not to double their money over 7 to 10 years, but to make 11x on their money through 2026 based on us selling our portfolio company, Green Coffee Company, or going public is really our strategy. So yeah, that's kind of the general theme there, I would say.
Mhm.
But in order to get comfortable, don't think of it as it's my whole portfolio. I'm going to invest in this particular area. Diversification is key in no matter what you're investing in. You want to diversify across asset classes, whether that's stocks, bonds, real estate, alternatives. You also want to diversify across geographies. So not just investing only in the US, but looking at other markets that potentially have more growth opportunity, or maybe they don't move in tandem like all investments in the US. Everything seems to be moving
Mhm.
up and down and swaying at the same time. Often in other markets, it's not as correlated. So that's
Mhm.
the main point there.
Yeah, I wanted to kind of ask you a little bit in terms of deciding which country or which part of the world that they want to start investing in, assuming they want to start diversifying. How does one, I mean, where does one start looking in for information to like, hey, maybe this is a good country, or hey, maybe this is a good place when they're not familiar with any foreign affairs at all?
Yeah. What you could look at is GDP or gross domestic product growth. It's the economy. So that's a measure of how the
Hmm.
economy is growing in a particular country. So when we look at Colombia and compare it to other countries in South America, it has exceeded them in growth since 2020. So 2020 and 2021, growth rate higher than other countries in the area. So if you're kind of narrowing down regions, you're like, okay, I want to invest in East Asia. And then, okay, what countries are there? How are they doing economically? So how are they growing? This is public data. So you can do research online and say,
Hmm.
I want to invest in, pick your country. What's the growth rate in that particular country? I think that's a good start, is looking at how the economy is performing over time. You can also look at political climate. So who's in power? Is it capitalistic? Is it socialist? Is it very much open for business, or is business restricted? I would look towards regions and countries that are open for business, that promote trade, promote investment, things of that nature. If you're looking at a country and you're like, okay, well, the government doesn't want any foreign investment, growth is down, people are oppressed, you might not want to look. But that's kind of some flags like, okay, maybe I don't want to be investing here. But if you see a country or an area that you're saying, oh, wow, growth is on the up, and I see it rising over time based on these factors, I think that will continue. Here's the business environment. You could start kind of build a thesis for yourself on why that
Mhm.
area makes sense. And a way around that for people that don't have the time or the resources and things like that is to invest in a diversified fund, like what you're mentioning. Something
Mhm.
can give you exposure to multiple markets. So you're not just in Colombia or just in China or whatever it is, and you have exposure to a basket of different countries, right? So let's say something starts going poorly in one country, you're not so much affected because that particular index fund is linked to a variety of different regions.
No, yeah, definitely. That's some great advice because, as even with it comes to investing in traditional stuff, it's hard because you have to spend a lot of time reading and analyzing maybe a couple different factors you're looking into, but nevertheless, a lot of time goes into it and stuff. I wanted to ask because, as you mentioned, a lot of people that are investing with you guys are high net worth individuals, but one of the reasons I want to still bring you on is because awareness is power. And this is one of those asset classes similar to when I had my syndication episode that like there's not a large chunk of the population investing in things like opportunities like this and stuff. So how does one start preparing to get ready? Although it may be many, many, many steps away from where they are currently, but how does one kind of line themselves up to start investing in some of these other products so that when the time comes, when the money eventually comes, they're ready to go and pull the trigger and start diversifying not only across, as you said, different asset classes, but across geographies as well.
I think it comes down to the fundamentals. Investors first need to understand saving, investing intelligently, whether that's alternatives or traditional products. You need to understand, like, okay, what's my time horizon? What's a realistic expectation of when I'm going to get my money back and how much I get? I notice a lot of novice investors, so to speak, they think in a very short window. Maybe they'll buy a pick your stock. They'll buy a stock
Yeah.
on one day. 1 week later, the stock's down 10%. They're like, oh my God, I lost 10% on my money. Then next week it's down another 10%. And all of a sudden you lost 20% of your money. What if this is the next Apple or the next Tesla, right? And you're just investing at a point at first where the economy is turning and it's going down and the whole market is kind of falling. Does that mean you picked the wrong stock? Not necessarily. You might just be thinking of your time horizon entirely wrong. So when you invest in stocks, you should really have a multi-year time horizon. Unless you're a trader or a professional, timing the market is very difficult. So I think really understanding the fundamentals of long-term investing, wealth building, various ways in which you could do that, whether it's your retirement account, traditional real estate, stocks, bonds, what have you. I think understanding the basics of that and how it works is a good start for someone that wants to start investing in alternatives, private equity, and things of that nature. I don't think anyone goes from investing in nothing to investing in art projects, for example, right? They're
Yeah.
very much people that they're business owners, they're entrepreneurs, they understand risk and reward, they understand business cycles, they've invested in their own companies, invested in real estate, they've invested in the stock market in certain cases. So understanding the fundamentals of whatever niche you're in will lead you down the right path. So I think being an entrepreneur or business owner is a great way in, right? So you really you get to start to understand the growth cycles, what it takes to make a company successful. And then when
Mhm.
you're trying to identify early stage companies to invest in that aren't public, that are like saying, oh, look, well, this is what we want to do in order to get to an exit for investors, you can evaluate them better if you have a business background and you've done these sort of things on your own. Guys will reach out, they'll look at our financial statements, they'll look at our quarterly reports, they'll really look under the hood. And I don't think they'd be capable of doing that if they haven't been an investor for some time and or been a business owner. So that plus studying the market, doing research, even if you're not ready, there's plenty of information online, plenty of great books out there that can kind of guide you. It's really about mindset and how and when, as opposed to if, right? So kind of envision yourself being more successful and being an investor. Surround yourself with people who are mentors, role models, things of that nature.
I wanted to ask you, what are some concerns that people should look out for when starting to analyze these, alternative investment strategies in these privately owned companies? So what are some concerns they should start looking out for so that they don't put their money accidentally into something that ends up getting them burned or making them regret ever investing to begin with?
Yeah, I think you want to get all your questions answered. So I find more youthful or inexperienced investors, they might hear an idea and there's some hype around it, and they might not even understand it, and then they invest just because there's hype or people were talking about it. I would try and strip the hype out as much as you can and really think analytically. If it's a company that you're investing in, what's the need for their product? What's the need for their service? Who's the end buyer of it? What is the growth rate that you think on that particular product or service? Does it fit into the future economy, or is it the economy of 10 years ago? Not, did it just go up 100%? And am I riding it hoping it goes up another 100%? So you need to be asking more analytical questions. If it's a private investment, I'd encourage people to, well, whatever it is, write down their question, really think about it and analyze like, well, what don't I understand? Okay, let me write it down. What do I want to know? Okay. And then speak to if it's the case of us, like a private equity firm, speak to the fund manager and say, hey, look, I have these 10 questions. It's hoping you can address them for me. If they can't address them for you, or you don't like the answers, those are red flags, right? So you got to do your homework though too, or else you won't really identify what they are. In early stage private investing, you want to look at the team, what they've done before, what their track record is, and think, okay, is this, yeah, it may be a cool idea, but without the team behind it, couldn't be executed. So even if you like the idea and you already checked those boxes and you're comfortable with the strategy, you're comfortable with the product, who's behind it and can they deliver? So vet whoever is behind it and make sure that they're capable of doing it, whether that's private company, a syndication that you're investing in. I guess you can kind of cross this over a bit to public markets. Is really no one that you can get on the phone with and grill and ask questions if you're investing in public stock. But you could do research, you could do due diligence, try and get your questions answered before you pull it.
How important has it been investing in something that not only gives you a good return, but is actually giving a return to the world that we live in? How has that impacted you in your personal life, and how has that impacted you in your professional life, knowing that you're doing something that's not only giving people money back in their pockets, but is also producing a net positive return for our environment and our planet?
Yeah, we very much believe that investors could make high financial returns while also doing right by the people who work for us, by the environment. The Green Coffee Company specifically is most certainly an impact investment. We provide fair employment. We pay above average wages in many cases, health insurance, pensions, MOP. And this sounds normal to us and maybe in the US, but it's in an industry where things are done informally and people are paid cash and without benefits. So we're really lifting up the community. We have tons of videos, footage showing people's reactions to it, how they feel about it. When I visit the farms in Colombia, I see it firsthand. It's something really special to me. It really resonates. I wake up in the morning and I feel good about the work that I'm doing. When investors invest, I know it's going towards a good cause and that we're helping the community and doing right by people and really innovating and changing the way in which coffee is produced. And it's just like the right thing to do, first and foremost. You feel good about it. And from a return perspective, kind of circling back to that, investors are awarded or I'd say companies are awarded for doing these things, right? So take two different companies. Both are going public in the stock market, right? They're both going to do an IPO. One treats their employees great. They give them benefits. They pay them fairly. They give them all those things. They take care of the environment and everything. Then you have another company, same exact revenue, same profit, but they don't do that. And it's informal employment. They don't treat people well. Maybe it's the way things are done in the region, but that's just what they do, right? You're going to see two very different valuations or values of the company when they go public. Investors are going to be more interested in backing that company that does this high social environmental impact. And investors will make more money as a result of it. Plus, they're going to do the right thing. They're going to feel good about it and all that. So at the core of our business, we are impact focused. We do things on the environmental side, reducing waste, water. We're doing a solar project at one of our facilities. Just a lot of cool different things that check a lot of boxes for ESG or impact. And it's just really important, just personally, like I said. I don't know how certain people sleep at night, like doing what they do. I was helping a family member look for like, just an example. They were like looking for an apartment and then
Hmm.
they're getting all these requests for information. Obviously it was a scammer and they're trying to like
Yeah.
rip off some person. And it's just like, how do these people live with themselves, like making money in that manner? Right. That's like a total different stretch from working in an impact business to not impact criminal, but still like, it's just, those things come back to you. You treat people well, whether it's your investors or your employees, and it comes back to you. And maybe it's not from them, maybe it's from another thing or another activity, but the world is watching, people are watching. And besides that, you want to feel good about the work you're
Yeah, definitely. That's why, as I mentioned in my pre-show call all the time, it's like wealth to me is about abundance in all your areas of life. And I genuinely feel like if we had people that were more financially literate and wealthy mindset stuff, like you wouldn't operate and do certain things because you won't be coming from lack. And I feel like when you're coming from that state of lack, that's when the scams come. That's when a lot of people do things that normally they wouldn't want to align with, but it's because their identity, that's what's programmed into them that from living on survival mode. And people tend to make decisions that wouldn't be the most honorable, or probably in a different world, they probably wouldn't do it had they been wealthy or had a different mindset about things and different shoes. And it's great to hear that you guys are doing something good for the environment. I kind of want to ask you, how important is having like that grander purpose in business? Because it's not just, as you said, producing high returns, it's also genuinely helping the community around in Colombia where you guys are located. But when you're talking to these investors, because there's a lot of this stuff can be translated to anywhere, whether it's in the business world or whether you have a hair salon or whether you have a Habitat for Humanity and you're building houses, whatever it may be. But how important has that grander purpose and story been when creating these connections with other people?
I think it's incredibly important. It's not just the people that work for us. It's the investors, it's the public relations people, it's the media. I mean, it's everyone. Everyone cares about these sort of things. And you just see it, right? All these big corporations are shifting focus and they're like, oh, well, we're an ESG company that's environmental, social government. We care about all these things, but maybe their main business is selling weapons and then they donate 10% of their profit to like some noble cause. I mean, that's a dramatic comparison, but that's not impact investing, right? Just because the core business itself needs to actually care about these principles and things. And we see just so many companies that are like claiming to be impact focused. Maybe it's just like a small portion of the business, maybe a profit donation, maybe it's one arm of the company reducing waste or whatever. But we think a company should do it in every stage, every part of the process, whether it's the beginning stage, mid stage, late stage of the company, from top down, from senior management down to lower level employees. So it's just incredibly important. And doing it right is even more so. Like I said, there's so many people claiming to do it, but you just won't see the same level of sophistication and care that maybe we would put into our practices.
Yeah, and what would ESG like? What does that mean to you personally? Why do you find yourself so aligned with ESG and being able to wake up every day? And you kind of touched on it and throughout several of your answers throughout the podcast. But like, what does it really mean to you? Because it's something that gets you up, it gets you going. It kept you long for 3 years and counting. How has that really impacted who you are, and it gets you up and going today? And how important is it to find that thing that gets you up and running, especially on the days where you may not want to work, the days where you might feel a little sad, days where it's a rainy, cloudy day outside and you don't want to get after it.
To me, it's important because I want to leave the world a better place than when I entered it. I'm not a father yet, but I hope to be soon.
Hmm.
And my kids are going to have kids. Their kids are going to have kids. Even if I didn't, the world is growing and it's moving forward quickly. There's bad people in the world. There's good people in the world. There's a lot of people in the middle. I want to make the world a better place, whether that's the work that I do, whatever small impact I might have, right? You maybe even look at us in this whole, we're like a drop in a pond, right? Compared to all the companies out there. And then you just compare me to the billions of people in the world. How much of an impact am I having globally? Maybe not an incredible amount. I hope to change that though, right? Like as much that I can do to make the world better, I want to do for my kids, for their kids, for for everyone, right? I believe that the human race is going some exciting places. There's so much growth ahead on Earth and beyond it. And we need good people to drive forward various initiatives, and people that are underprivileged, people that are in communities that need help, that they need people like us in order to help them, right? So being in a position where I'm able to help people get better jobs, to take care of their families, to make the areas they live a cleaner and safer place, that really makes me feel fulfilled and happy. And in a grander mission, I want to exponentially grow that beyond Salgar, where the farms are located, beyond
Mm.
Colombia, even beyond the US, to make people happy, treat them well, give them a better purpose, sense of well-being, helping kids be more educated. It just comes full circle, I think. I
No,
mean,
no,
I don't know
definitely.
why exactly, but and thing the world where as I can, of
And that's
course.
one of those things where it's like you can't really put a finger on it. It just you don't know why it's there, but it's there, and it's burning at you, and you got to pick up the phone. It's one of those things you can't just let the phone keep on ringing. You don't know who's calling or why it's calling, but it's calling. You got to pick it up. It's one of those things. Just like I don't know, but I'm being called to it, so I just gotta go out and do it and make sure I do it the best that I can and impact as many as I can on the
Yeah.
way. You kind of mentioned throughout the show why you chose Colombia, but why coffee? Why farmlands? What made you interested in that, and where do you see that going, especially the coffee industry? Because as you mentioned earlier, when picking out a company, you want to ask if it's something that that it's going to be useful in 10 years or it's going to be needed in 10 years. And so the why coffee, why farmland?
More than 2 billion cups of coffee are consumed daily in the world, and that number is growing. We believe, and I believe, that no matter what happens to the economy, let's take COVID as an example. Everyone might have been at home. We were all just still drinking coffee. I bet, right? At least I was, and everyone I talked to was, right? Certain products and things that we have in our life that no matter what happens, we're still going to consume it. So coffee is one of those staple products. It's consumed by all sorts of people from all different walks of life. If they lose their job, if things slow down, things are usually cut out first before coffee, right?
Hmm.
So very much ingrained in our society. And I love coffee myself, of course.
Yeah.
The taste, the flavor, the feeling, and caffeine. So it's great. It's also investment wise, commodities. Commodities are like things like that, like corn, oil, coffee. They rise when inflation rises. So as costs go up, or you see it in the grocery store, right? Uh,
Yeah.
Food is getting more expensive. Gas has gotten more expensive. It's pulled back a little bit, but all these things continue to get more expensive. And owning the resource at origin, aka farmland or coffee farmland in this case, is what's called a hedge against inflation. I mean, as inflation rises, the value of my assets rise as well. So I'm not as affected by it, or I'm
Hmm.
almost a beneficiary of it in certain cases. So
Yeah.
coffee prices have exploded in the last couple of years. We've been a beneficiary of that as we're able to sell coffee at a higher price, and we have the land that we already bought, for example, at a certain point in time. So it's a great hedge against inflation. It's very much ingrained in our lives. It's the second most liquid commodity next to oil. You could unload unlimited amounts of coffee in Colombia, US, all over the world. It's just, there's such a market for it. And it's an industry that's ripe for disruption. So in Colombia, everything's done in an antiquated manner. Like I said, people paid informally, old machinery, old equipment. So we're coming in, we're applying a first world business practice, really building like the most sophisticated coffee processing facilities in the region,
Hmm.
potentially in the world. It's fully automated, technology from all over, from developed Europe, from Brazil. We have like a really strong team bringing in all this stuff, changing the business. So coffee in Colombia, very much, like I said, ripe for disruption. And we're able to revolutionize an industry as significant as coffee with not an incredible amount of capital. I mean, we deployed just under 40 million US dollars into Colombia, and we
Hmm.
become the number one largest coffee producer and growing with that amount of capital. You can't disrupt the US industry as significant as coffee is in Colombia with that amount of money. So part of that's because it's Latin America. Other is that it's an industry that is lacking foreign investment. But those are just some of the reasons. And then we've just built a team of coffee professionals around us, finance and coffee professionals, of course. And we've just proven to have a good business model. So we're continuing to invest in it.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question. From what you've seen personally, especially from your trips over to Colombia. You bring in, as you said, a lot of these state-of-the-art first world technologies to a country where things were done informally, and you're disrupting the natural way of their doing business because it's a little antiquated, as you mentioned. How impactful has that been to the lives of the people there working for you guys, working with you guys on these projects, not having probably ever had access to a lot of the technologies that you guys are introducing into now? So how impactful has that been on their lives? You mentioned kind of some of the videos that you have as testimonials. So what can you say from the experiences that you've seen that were shared?
Yeah, just as an example, we have a nursery on one of our farms, and we employ a group of single mothers who are heads of household, and we help them with childcare. We pay them fairly. It's led by a woman as well. It's not easy for these people to find work. I mean, you think in the US, like, oh, single mother, I can get work, but not everywhere, not in every country, not in every region. So we're giving these people opportunity, and they're very grateful for it. You'll find footage on that, like I mentioned on the YouTube channel. But that's definitely one, promoting people to be leaders, to just a lot of different things on that end. Let me see what else on like the social level. We're the largest employer in the town that we work or that we're in Salgar. So there's a lot there to unpack, of course, but you really just see it with your own eyes down there that people are happy to go to work. They're great.
Yeah.
They thank you literally to us when we're there. So not just presentations and videos, it's real and in person, and I see it. So it's just giving people opportunity to work an honest day's work, get paid fairly. If they get hurt, they get taken care of. We make sure they go to the hospital, they get treatment or whatever it is. Kind of what it means to us, I'd say, locally.
Yeah, that's amazing. Josh, you've been dropping a bunch of gems throughout this episode. Long story short, you really showed how, now you can make an impact both in your own wallet, but also in the lives around the people that you're investing in other countries that may not be anywhere near where you live currently. And you kind of just showed that throughout the stories that you mentioned and throughout our conversation today. Where could people find out more about you if they wanted to get in touch, they wanted to learn more about alternative investment strategies and things of that nature?
Yeah, you could find us on our website. So at legacy-group.co. You can also find us on YouTube under Legacy Group. If you want to get in touch by email, we can be reached at investor.relations@legacy-group.co.
Amazing. And Josh, it's time for my favorite part of the podcast episode, the final 4 questions. And so question number 1, what is the most impactful lesson that you learned in life?
Let's see. So many. Where do I start? Right. I would emulate and watch what the successful people are doing, the people that you look up to. Don't just feel jealous of them or envious, but actually look at their actions. What are they doing? What are they reading? What are they working? Who are they friends with? What do they do after work? And really start to understand, like, okay, now why? Why are they doing that? Why does that make them successful? And really analyze the people that you look up to. Don't just be jealous of them, because you could become them. You very much can become them by emulating the activities that they're doing every single day, right? If you don't build Rome in a day or whatever the phrase is, right? It's chip away at your goals, get closer and closer to where you want to be. And you do that by finding things within, but also seeing what others who are more successful than you are doing and applying that to your everyday life.
Yeah, amazing. And what is the most admirable trait that you could find in a person?
Honesty and integrity, I'd say.
If you had to change someone's life with one book, what would you recommend?
Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
I think at this time, I probably got that answer like 8 times so far. It's an amazing book. It's the book that started me on my journey. So yeah, it's definitely an amazing book. And the final question is, what is you kind of mentioned it already throughout the episode, but what is the legacy that you're trying to leave behind?
Yeah, I already kind of touched on it before, but leaving the world better than it was when I arrived here, promoting education, intelligence, human rights, all that.
Amazing. Well, Josh, it was a pleasure having you on the show. Thanks again for agreeing to hop on and having this conversation with me today. I really do appreciate it.
Thanks, John. I'll see you around. Thanks for having me on.